I can't wait to see fruit on these trees next year. It's late fall, the leaves are in, it's tree trimming time! Wait! This man clearly needs to know the 5 do's and don'ts of fruit trees. First things first, and the life of your tree depends on it, don't plant the tree too deep. A tree's roots need oxygen to thrive, so by planting them too deep, you deprive the tree's root system of the oxygen they need, leading to poor growth and even tree death. This tree died for other reasons, but if I was going to plant it in the ground, I would first recognize the grafted end, and I would disregard that for now. I would find the root system and the root flare, the flare is the part just above the roots that is a little bit thicker than the root system and the root structure down below. And this plant the soil level would be just above those root systems and just below the root flare. So right about here. Instead, do dig a bigger and wider hole. This actually didn't work as well as I thought. Do dig a bigger and wider hole. And digging that bigger hole and filling it with its growing medium allows the soil to be softer and looser, making it so that those root systems can grow sideways easier, giving it more access to water and nutrients as it establishes in its new place. Here's an important thing to remember though, as you plant a tree, you can ask 10 different people and you'll get 13 different answers. Our situation is a little bit different. We have really rocky, not very great draining soil, and we're on a cedar glade, so things have to grow a little bit differently here than in other places. So what we like to do here, instead of just digging a wide hole, we like to dig deeper and backfill that with all really good nutrients, well draining, so that as soon as the plant is ready to throw down its taproot, it has adequate area to go through, work its way through the rocks, and grow and establish right here in this place. Number 2, and this really goes for the other guy, don't prune your trees in late fall and early winter. The best time to prune your tree is late winter or early spring, before the tree starts to actively grow and take on greenery. Since the plant is coming out of dormancy and actively preparing to grow, the wounds heal quicker, the tree is less likely to undergo stress after trimming, the tree is least susceptible to fungus, pests, and disease. And if these cuts are made in winter months, especially where it gets very cold, this can allow the plant to have access to where frostbite is able to enter into the plant and actually damage or kill it. Do trim a tree according to its fruit type though. Trees like apples and pears like a more structured pruning and benefit from a lighter touch. Boop. Stone fruit like peaches and cherries, on the other hand, with an open center allowing for light to penetrate and air to circulate, focusing on overall structure without inducing too much stress through pruning. There are so many different pruning structures for so many different fruits. Things like open-centered, or also known as vase, or central leader, or modified central leader, or corridor, fan, spindle, bush, pyramid, Belgian fence, umbrella, and this one I don't actually know how to pronounce it, espalier. But all those deserve a video in and of themselves. I can either make it here, or you can easily find resources on these things through the collection of the pressing together of the information known as the internet. Number 3, don't let grass grow up to the base of the fruit tree. Also, disregard the alpaca poop. I think that guy from earlier didn't realize I was supposed to be filming a video right now. Me? Grass competes with trees for water and nutrients, particularly with nitrogen. This competition leads to weakening young or shallow-rooted trees. Grass can compete with the tree's feeder roots, which are close to the surface. This competition can lead to the tree not getting a sufficient amount of nutrients. It also encourages moisture retention close to the base, encouraging rot and fungus, and then trying to mow or weed whack around these young trees can lead to damage at the root, killing the tree. Do put mulch around a tree's base. By adding wood mulch in a 2 to 3 inch depth, along with a 2 to 3 foot radius, this bed of wood helps with temperature control and suppresses weeds. And a hidden benefit to this wood chip bed is that over time, this organic material breaks down, becoming an incredible soil, topping this entire area. Number 4, don't fertilize your trees at the wrong time. Avoid fertilization in late summer or early fall. This late fertilization can cause a flush of new growth, which is very tender and very susceptible to frost damage and can throw off a plant's natural rhythm to go into dormancy. Do fertilize in early spring, just as a tree is starting to leaf out. This is when the tree is seeking for the most amount of nutrients, trying to grow and come out of dormancy and start putting on new growth. Adding a slow release nitrogen could give the plant its nutrients throughout the summer. Or depending on the tree, a second or third fertilization at the beginning and midsummer could even be very effective. And number 5, don't let your fruit trees get too tall. Harvesting trees that are so tall you can't reach them is only going to lead to you staring at more fruit than being able to pick it and harvest it. There are tools for harvesting fruit that are too high up, but nobody wants to stand there and do this to try to harvest all of their fruit. A smaller tree doesn't just give you an adequate harvest, it also makes it so that every fruit on that tree is accessible to you. And do consider pollination. Certain variety of fruit require cross-pollination, like apples and pears. So we need to make sure that there's another tree close enough by that cross-pollination is possible. For a tree that requires cross-pollination, make sure that you're planting 2 compatible varieties within 50 to 100 feet of each other. Having these trees close enough together encourages cross-pollination because a pollinator, bee, butterfly, whatever it is, will jump from one flower on one tree over to a flower on the other tree more effectively. If they're too far apart, you're discouraging pollination from one side of your property all the way to the other. And to some very small degree, some apples and pears can be cross-pollinated through wind as long as the trees are close enough. This isn't a very effective way to be able to cross-pollinate. It's more so done by bugs, but why not encourage wind pollination also by having them close enough together? And if you don't have enough property or space to plant 2 trees, make sure that you're planting a variety that is self-pollinating. The goal would be to effectively grow as much fruit that the tree can sustain, so let's also help it by pollinating it the best way that we can. And for those of you who have stayed this long in the video, you get a bonus. Don't neglect your trees and watching out for disease. This tree right here was affected by cedar apple rust. It is a brown, rusty looking fungus that ends up on the leaves. We had to hopefully save this tree. We trimmed off every single affected leaf. Hopefully that works. We can see some new growth down here, but really time will tell this upcoming spring. The downside to this one is that we actually live in a cedar forest pretty much. There's other trees around, but we are surrounded by cedar trees. That cedar apple rust affects cedar trees, which then throw off the spores in early spring. The best way to deal with it is to deal with that specific cedar tree, but I'm in a cedar forest. If I find a tree affected by cedar rust, there's going to be tons more with it. So that just means I have to be extra diligent with all of my apple trees that are affected by cedar apple rust and make sure that I'm catching it early enough on. Now throughout this video, you may have seen that I broke some cardinal rules of tree planting. One of those is building up in a mound underneath your tree. There are some specific reasons why I did that, and that has to do with the environment that I'm growing in. And if you're curious about those types of things and how we're growing and how difficult it is for us to grow in our garden, check out some of our other videos, because we're in a particular challenge that makes things difficult on our homestead. But hey, we've reached the end of the video, and I wish you good luck on all of your fruit trees, because I know that they are one of the most sought after and desired things for most people on a homestead or even in their backyards. Make sure you're treating those things right, and I'll see you in the next one.